It's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you are at work, in the car, or wherever you are, we hope you enjoy this show about the great sport of geocaching. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can be part of the adventure tonight in the chat room and participate with others as they watch the show. If you are listening later, please give it a like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app so that you can get all of the weekly Geocache Talk goodness. If you have not become a patron of the Geocache Talk Network, what are you waiting for? Patron levels start as low as a Bison Tube level at $3 a month. To sign up is easy. Simply go to the Geocache Talk website and click on the Become a Patron button, or go to patreon.com/Geocache Talk. Patrons now get the famous Blackout coin, invites to special events, and other really great items throughout the year. Become a patron today. Have you subscribed to FTF Magazine yet? FTF Magazine is the #1 geocaching magazine available. It is a quarterly magazine that you can be part of. Submit your geocaching milestones and adventures to be published. FTF Magazine is also interactive with puzzles to solve and the hunt to find Spartacus. If you can solve the puzzle or find Spartacus, then you will be entered in to win a special pack tag. Every new subscription, you will receive a special swag pack. Subscribing is easy. Just visit FTF's website, ftfgeo.com. Don't miss out and subscribe today.
And sponsored by smashingpennies.net. Get 10% off your order with code Geocache Talk Network. They are perfect to put in a geocache.
Hello and welcome to Geocache Talk. I am the Pizza Ninja. Out tonight are Gary and Jesse. They're on assignment. They're doing some missions that I cannot disclose the details on at this time. But before we want to start the show, I want to give a big thanks to Derek of the Baker 6 Clan for creating the graphics, and some of our featured patrons. We're going to focus on their California patrons tonight. We want to thank Gary, Andrew, Great Slater, James, Gas Station Tuna, a name that I love, Ashley, Udak, and David. And thank you to all of our patrons for keeping the show on the air. With me tonight as a co-host is Pathfinder 33 Charles. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Oh, it's another day trapped in paradise, brother. We are loving life as we know it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Charles, for joining me tonight. I think this is our first time, in fact, that you and I are on a show together.
It has been. It is. And it's, ironic that it's the POS, the plain old Sunday show that we're both on. We haven't yet got you over to Puzzle Land. We'll get you there eventually, I'm sure. So
love it, man.
I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I'm glad to be your ride or die for this Sunday show.
Oh, man. One person who I know I can count on to have pizza.
Yes.
Appreciate that. I want to welcome our guest, too, on the show tonight. We have Magplanner. And Mag's joining us from beautiful, sunny California today.
Hey, travelers.
Yeah, thank you, Mag, for joining us. And our show tonight is on the topic of every county with a friend. Mag, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I started geocaching back in 2010, right after I left the Marine Corps. At the same time that I began geocaching, I adopted Ai-chan. And her and I have decided we're going to hit the road together, and we're going to finish all of the counties and all of the DeLorme pages in the lower 48 contiguous United States.
Wow. That is an incredible goal on that side. We want to certainly welcome everybody in the chat today to ask questions as we're going through tonight's show, too. But one of the things that we don't want to forget is that we do have a few news updates on here as well, too. So let's go. Our first news update, we're going to talk a little bit about Cache Fest. And Charles, are you excited for Cache Fest?
I'm so excited for Cache Fest. It's unreal.
Man, Charles is. I know you're going to be there, right?
I will be there. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We're looking forward to the first mega event in Oklahoma. It's going to be a good time. We are excited to be there for the event. So yes, we'll be there.
Yeah, and it's not every day you can say that you attended a state's first mega. So, I mean, that is pretty cool that it's the first mega ever in Oklahoma.
That's
Um,
right.
the packages are up for sale right now too. We do want to mention on that side. So if people want to get the packages, go to cashfest.com. There is a really cool and exclusive Friends of package this year that is selling quick like hotcakes on this one, and
It
includes
is.
special coins and even getting your name on the shirt that everybody will then get for the event with the packages on that side too. So that is pretty cool on that side. And I know one other news that we want to talk about is GeoCoin Fest. Charles and I, in fact, the other day were messaging each other. Charles says, hey, John, what are you doing? Like October. And I said, going to GeoCoin Fest, of course.
That's right, man. Super excited when I found out that the dates had been released for CoinFest. It is one of my favorite events to go to. I, of course, have custom made trackable geotags. This next year, I plan to have custom made personal geocoins that I can trade with others. So if you're going to be at CoinFest and you're one of those individuals that has custom made stuff, hey, bring an extra one along with you, and I'll make sure that I can trade with you. I'm having some custom molds made for me, so I'm going to have some custom hand poured solid copper coins that I'm going to have available at CoinFest, as along with some custom coins that I'm having made by a manufacturer. So if you're going to be at the event, hey, we encourage you to go to geocoinfestus.com, check out the dates that are published, post your will attend. And if you're one of those people who likes to collect custom trackables, this is the event for you. If you make some, I'm going to be bringing some of mine. So love to trade with you for other custom personalized geotags and geocoins if you've got them.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait. And can't wait for Charles to be up in New York for the first time ever, I believe, right?
That's right. First time. And, I've flown over the state a few times. But this will be my first time actually being at, boots on the ground in New York State. So will be a good time to get up there and see things.
Yeah. In Houston, Texas, Dave is asking, when is CoinFest? If you go to geocoinfestus.com, it has the dates. I think, is it October 16th through?
Let's see. Yeah, 16th through the 20th. 16th through the 20th right now is what they have listed on the website. So, we're looking forward to being in Syracuse, New York. That time of year ought to be beautiful with leaves changing colors and whatnot. So, we'll be excited to attend that event. So,
yeah. And one thing I do have to give credit and congratulations to Lori. Lori actually found the Cache Fest Vault key number 1 the other day. So she found that over in up in Washington on that one. So a big congratulations to Lori on that side. More clues are going to be coming soon in regards to the Cache Fest Vault. So if you haven't, please join the Cache Fest Vault Facebook group. That's where all the clues are going to go. And yeah, a lot of people congratulating Lori on that one. So that is awesome, Lori, that you were the first one to find the first key. So very cool on that front. Any other news you think, Charles, you want to share?
No, not on my end. I think we're ready to jump on into the meat and potatoes of the show with Mags here.
Yeah. And Max, we already got a few comments in the chat room. Houston, Texas Dave's been following your journey on YouTube from there. So that is very cool. And,
thanks for tuning in.
And UDEX said how Ichan had a boat on the trip. How nice on that one.
Her boat was to be close to me, but Wherever I go, that's where she wants to be.
Oh man, how cool! How cool on that one. And do you have to give a shout out to Struck 2 for having homemade pizza for dinner tomorrow night? You know, you can't go wrong with that one. And
I mean, the
there's
only thing that would make homemade pizza better, and I know you and I have talked about this, John, is the dill pickle pizza.
absolutely.
The dill pickle pizza. We found a place in Vegas, so I'm driving through Vegas twice this next week, and so I'm going to try and stop and have dill pickle pizza at a restaurant that newly has listed as a secret menu item. So stay tuned. I will give you updates on the dill pickle pizza from Vegas.
Oh man, looking forward to it, Charles. Looking forward to it. So for tonight, if anybody has any questions that they want to ask Mag as we go on, please put them in the chat room. We definitely want to hear from people onto what they say. And oh man, one direwolf, and I promise I won't go too far down the pizza path, Mag. You got to forgive me on this one. I do have a little bit of an obsession. But homemade pizza requires homemade beer. That sounds awesome, Direwolf. That sounds incredible on that one. But
all right, so let's jump into this thing. You are all right. It says you're already 200 plus days in and nearly 90% complete with the U.S. counties. Roughly, where are you in completing this? And I will tell you that it is a lofty, this is a magnificent adventure that you have decided to take on. And where are you completion wise, and where are you like days wise into this year-long adventure that you've planned out?
So today, day 231 just published. And I managed to stay 2 days ahead of what I'm publishing. So today was really day 233 for us. We are 2/3 of the way done with the country, and we're 90% of the way done with the counties. The reason that we're 90% of the way done with the counties and like 2/3 done with the country is because the counties that we have left for the most part are in the northwest corner of the country. And those counties are huge compared to a lot of the East Coast counties. So as we're working on the West Coast now over the next few months, it's really going to be more of a focus on the DeLorme pages. And at that point, that's more accurate toward our 2/3 of the way done. But we are making our progress. We've been staying either on track or ahead of what we've had scheduled pretty much the whole time. And when we've gotten ahead of schedule, we've been able to use those days at the right time. For example, we pushed a few days ahead out of Kentucky, don't want to talk about it, to get into Tennessee. And I was able to spend some time with my sister at her house. And then we had a few weird days in New Mexico where we got ahead several days. And what happened in New Mexico? Anyway, we had some weird days there. We got ahead, and we ended up at my brother's house for a few extra days in Vegas. So it's worked out pretty well when we've had a little bit of lead time to work with.
That's awesome. So let's see. All right, so let's talk about some of this. When you started this, you already had a fraction of the United States done.
We were just past the halfway mark, right about 1,600 counties complete. Like I want to say 50.1%. My goal had been, since I very first started in this game, was to complete one state per year, the county and DeLorme challenges, if they had a DeLorme challenge. And so we maintained exactly that. We did a lot of the Southeast first, and then we started working the Northeast parts of the state. We kind of snuck over to Nevada while nobody's looking and knocked that out as well. And so by the time I got to this trip, I had 14 states complete. And really, those 14 are not featured in what we're doing for this trip. It's the other 34 we're focusing on, with the exception of Nevada. And we're coming in and out of Las Vegas. You're getting some of that time, but otherwise, none of the North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, etc. None of those are really being hit.
yeah. Hey, Meg, we do have a question from UDAC. She says she's never completed a DeLorme challenge. How do cachers prove their finds with the checker or screenshots?
So the DeLorme challenge themselves are a dying breed, which was part of the motivation to want to finish them. DeLorme was bought out by Garmin in 2015. If you visit the DeLorme headquarters building where they have the big rotating globe, it is now Garmin, and they're refurbishing the building and reconstructing it. So the DeLorme Atlas, as we know, it's over. The challenges can't be published anymore. As they are archived, they're gone. Most of the states have a locked in place DeLorme challenge. So let's say, for example, the 10th edition. It may have been up to the 14th edition by the time DeLorme was bought out, but the 10th edition is the official of what's being used. There are checkers in GSAC, which is what I prefer to use for the DeLorme challenges. And if you go on even though GSAC itself is no longer being updated, the app itself still works. And on the site, you can download macros to be able to use in there. There's a DeLorme macro that covers the majority of the states. The only ones it has problems with are specialty ones that have multiple editions of the challenge. And then you have to search for ones that give you something in that range. For example, Tennessee, there's a 9th edition. We didn't do that. California, there's a North and South edition to the DeLorme challenges. We didn't do that. We're doing the Golden State. And so using GSAC, you can find pretty much all of them except Wyoming. I haven't found an actual checker available for that state.
And Wyoming, I can tell you, being the CO for the state county challenge, or at least one of the Wyoming had two. We've got an unintended CO who placed a cache there as the county challenge years ago that he's still an active geocacher, just for whatever reason, does not travel to Wyoming anymore and has not kept that geocache for years. And so I had, when I lived in Wyoming, placed a new geocache as the state county challenge cache, and have made annual trips to Wyoming to do owner maintenance on it. But I can tell you that I'm like 3 pages short of the Wyoming DeLorme challenge. There is a DeLorme challenge for the state, and there is a checker. So I'll send that to you after the show so that you have it if you haven't made your rounds over to Wyoming yet. But yeah,
I have not.
Trying to find the checkers for some of this stuff has, especially in some of these very unpopulated states like Wyoming is, it has proven to be kind of a challenge. So I can help you out with the Wyoming DeLorme challenge, and I can send you some of that stuff. I don't know if there's a GSAC macro for it, but there's definitely a checker in what am I thinking of? How come I can't think of this?
Project GC.
Project GC.
Right.
So,
and I know it has some of the states in there, but they're not all in there.
And they're not, and it's so it's kind of odd, but I can help you out with a Wyoming DeLorme challenge and a Project GC checker. So you can, at least, if you haven't planned that part of your route yet, you can plan it so that you can get all of the pages while you're getting all of the counties as well.
Oh, it's all planned, but a tool to verify what I'm pretty sure is in those pages would be nice, because that's the state where I'm like, am I going to miss?
Oh man, that must feel like quite a bit of pressure.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
All right. So I guess since we've talked about both Project GC and GSAC, what are the tools that you have used to plan this trip? And did you have the entire trip in its entirety planned, or have you kind of done it in sections that you're like, all right, so I'm done with, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. Now it's time for me to plan, Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, Washington. And so if you had some down days in Las Vegas at your brother's house, did you plan some additions, or how are you negotiating caches that you may have planned on your route that may have been archived before you got to them, but were on your list of planned geocaches?
Okay. A lot to unpack in this question. So first, when I finish this entire thing, I'm planning on doing a special video series, not many, dozen tops, on kind of planning. And it'll be different planning factors in each video where we talk about how to create a target list, how to time it out, things like that. So for this trip, I had 1 year to do it. That was what my wife and I discussed, and that's what we're going to make happen. So I knew from July 1st to July 1st, that was what I was running with. I have custom maps that I have created for my visual, so I can see it, of each of the state's counties with a DeLorme map overlay on top of it, which is what I display in my daily video of here's the route we're taking today. And so you can see the way the route crawls through the counties and the pages. I made those for myself so that I could better visualize the routes that I want to take to hit what I need to. And then I did the actual plan in layers. I planned the entire thing before I ever started. So downtime doesn't really happen. I make a video every single day. So every single day, if I haven't planned that day, for example, the extra time I had at my brother's house, I'm laying in bed at night going, what am I going to do tomorrow? What adventure am I going to take that's video worthy? We'll go to Red Rock Canyon. You can't go wrong there. Things like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
But for the entire trip, I laid out the route and I had multiple layers to it. So I knew I was doing counties and pages. And I routed those to get through the northeast part of the country first because I knew I was starting in summertime and I wanted to maximize my good weather in the northern part of the states. When I had enough stuff added into my target list there that I thought we're coming pretty close to winter, I dropped the route south and brought it into Texas, southern Arizona, southern New Mexico, southern California to try and whittle away as much of the time winter as I could. And then I did another layer on top of that where I was checking weather in areas as well as elevation. So for example, I was seeing in the Sierra Nevada mountains between February and March, it's just a dumb idea to plan a route through there because I'm bound to get myself hit. So I planned completely around it. I go into Nevada and around the Sierra Nevada mountains. I don't even touch that section. And I did kind of the same thing in running the California coast the way I did because the weather here supports it. One of the big risks I knew coming up was Pacific Coast Highway may have road closures because of landslides. Sure enough, it did. We also kind of accounted for that in the plan as we went too, though. So I had major sections of mileage where it's 300, 300, 300. And I would know after, let's say, 5 days of major sections of mileage, I probably need a place in here where I can catch myself if I've fallen behind, or I can spend some time if I'm on schedule. And so I've had those spots at certain intervals in the plan where it made sense. And that's been able to give me that kind of accordion. Okay, I'm behind right now. I'm going to cut all these virtuals, all this stuff in this big city I want to see. We got to move through. On the flip side, oh, I got here ahead of time. We're on schedule. Let's go explore downtown Duluth.
Wow.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And UDAC wanted to make sure on this one too, because she talked about today's video about that road closure. So, she's asking sharing, and it sounds like you're talking a little bit about your techniques, but I mean, especially with the California highway, how far did you have to go out of your way with the road closure?
This is still a little bit of a soft spot for me here, UDAC, because I'm still reeling from this hit. So we were running on time through that day. I made cuts as we went. I knew I was right where I needed to be. And we got to within a mile of the page boundary for page 100. 6 miles to the nearest cache, but a mile when I got to those road closed signs. And at a guess, I'd have to say it's probably at least 120 plus miles around to get to that same spot. Because that's all I need to do is get about 8 miles up the road from where we were, which requires coming all the way back down Pacific Coast Highway, coming east around the mountains, and then coming all the way back into Salinas before we just came back around the same spot we could have been in 20 minutes. Bottom line, that put me about half a day behind. And I did a lot of night driving. I didn't sleep that much in the last couple of nights as a result of it, but we put ourselves back on track.
Wow. Man, talk about dedication on that one. Was that kind of like were you feeling the adrenaline from trying to make that up?
Kind of, but I knew that there was risks on Pacific Coast Highway. One of the things in the planning process is to identify risk factors and have mitigation strategies. knowing that was a risk, I planned an admin day in San Francisco, and I planned a geocaching day in San Francisco. That if things went really bad on Pacific Coast Highway, they did, we'd have the time to make it up. And it turns out that I still was able to cut my schedule in such a way I caught up and still have the time to hang out in San Francisco anyway.
Nice. That's good
There you
contingency
go.
planning right there. Yeah. Another question we had too that came through was speaking of logging caches, Lori from the Seaback tribe says, "Are you able to keep up with logging all the caches? How do you do that?"
This is very important to me. Prior to this trip around the United States, I would always log after a trip. But in 7 months, I've found about 7,000 caches. So I'm not going to backlog that after a year. I have a no homework policy. I answer all of my Earth caches, all of my virtuals right there on the spot, unless I don't have signal and I have to Google, and then I wait. And I log all my geocaches. Thank goodness for talk to text, because I can start on the road and then talk out my log and send it through and keep on moving to the next one. And Aichan, not very helpful with that talk to text logging, so she kind of leaves the whole thing on me.
So no teamwork on that one. That's all on your shoulders.
Now the teamwork pretty much relies on my dog is trained on the path of least resistance, so she will always take the easiest path of approach to wherever it is we're going. Which means that when we're out looking for a geocache, if there's even the hint of a geotrail that I may not be able to see from my level, oh, she can see it from her level. And she will take that path because it offers her the least amount of shrubbery or whatever, and there's the geocache at the end. So if she starts breaking in the tree line near a GZ, I kind of follow her.
Oh man, yeah. And one other comment just came through from Dan Stafer, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He said Mag found one of his caches in Union County, Indiana, and he's been following you ever since.
And I appreciate you following and all the great comments.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
All right, so you obviously have to pick and choose the geocaches that you are looking for. What are some of your primary focuses that you focus on when trying to select a geocache to get along your route that that will help you accomplish this goal? But what are the primary focuses that you have for geocaches that you come across? So I guess if you had to rank them, you're looking for this and this and this and this and this. What are you focusing on when selecting a geocache in a given area?
So priority one is qualifying for the county and qualifying for the page. And I tend to look for a spot that gives me 2 for 1, where the page and the county overlap in a meaningful way. Beyond that, I look for specifically things that may be at scenic spots. I love veterans memorials, but bridges or anywhere where I can, because I live on the satellite maps now, anywhere where it looks like it may have an interesting thing to check out, those are the first things that I add to it. Favorite points go behind that to make sure that I'm kind of aiming for good caches. And if all things are being equal on a county and page and nothing jumps out, I'll be just as quick to add a lamp skirt lifter or a guardrail just to help me push through to the more interesting stuff. Beyond the county and the page targets, and then the favorites, of course, oldest are my top priority, of which there's very few left. I still find any cache across Americas that are on my route, even though I've completed the series. And then I like to aim at virtuals a lot of times because those are not guaranteed, but they have a much higher chance of bringing me to a really interesting place. And I also like to do earth caches for the same reason, but I'm kind of selective about the earth caches that I choose. If it's just a quick park and grab earth cache pointing out an oxbow at kind of a flat area, it doesn't mean anything to me. But if it's at an overlook at a really great geological spot or something like that, I like to add those because they bring me to the places I want to see. And that's been kind of my rule of thumb in general for the game, is I've always considered geocaching as a locals tour of an area. So it's great to hunt down and find the geocaches. But for me personally, it's about the place that they're bringing me to first and the geocache second. So I'm always aiming for the locations, what I can see, what I can bring to everybody as well.
Hey, Mag, you mentioned Cache Across America, And Nancy from the Deadliest Cachers asked, how long did it take you to complete the Cache Across America challenge?
It took me, I want to say 10 years. I started in 2010 with Hawaii. And when I found Hawaii, like a lot of geocachers on their first Cache Across America, I'll never finish this series. And then after like a dozen Cache Across Americas, you start to look at it and go, well, if I just take my route here, maybe this is possible. And before you know it, you're at 30 and it starts to become a real thing. So when we were originally, let me back up a little bit. Before this trip, I did geocaching trips every year. I would have about a 2-month block planned during the summer where I would send out to a mailing list of people and say, these are the 4 trips I have planned out over the summer. Let's say 10 days, 4 days, 5 days, 10. I'd have the amount of seats, I'd have the budget, I have the locations. And within a few days, all of the seats would be filled for the trips. And then we would go out to these locations with whichever team we'd assembled, and I would plan the trips. Except for very few trips, I was always the planner for it, and people would fall into what I was doing. State's oldest were first, state capitol buildings, Cache Across America, and the most favorited geocaches in the state. So as we planned our way through touring all 50 states, those were the priorities that we looked at as we went through. And then with some states like Alaska, we had to make a choice. Are we going to go to the capital and the oldest? Are we going to go with Cache Across America? And in those cases, the Cache Across America series actually won out because I've always loved them. They almost always bring you to great locations, and they're almost always really well done geocaches. And if you looked at the county map before we had started on this trip, you would see I-10, I-20, I-40, I-5, I-95, and they were all painted in on the counties because we were using them to get to the oldest, the favorites, and the Cache Across America, which means that coming into this trip, having aimed for all those, I almost never get interstate time. It's always back roads.
Interesting.
Always.
Wow.
And I'll tell you that those back roads are some of the best geocaching memories that I can remember. Is those roads where when you got back to pavement or got back to the highway, you were like, man, my car needs a car wash. I need to visit like a drive-through car wash. Those are some of the best memories that I can have. I haven't completed near the amount of counties you have. I think I've got 13 states complete right now. All of them except for Delaware, all in the Western United States. So I feel your pain going through here where you're like, look at the PCH was closed. I had to backtrack and go around, and there's some of that stuff where, you mentioned the Sierra Nevadas, and like some of this stuff, like the winter storms that have blown in, and they're like, yeah, this is going to turn into being another Donner Party winter. It's some of those things where, you can plan all you want, and in the end, Mother Nature's going to win sometimes. That being said, you have to account for, you don't just have one cache on your list as you're going through these counties and DeLorme pages. You have to have a primary, a secondary, a tertiary. You have to have in case of emergency, this guardrail will do, even though it's not the primary focus, but you have to, in the end, and in order to stay on schedule that you have and be able to publish videos the way that you have, you've got to kind of stick to, hey, this is where I cut sling load. This is where I cut my losses. And I have to get around that. In that, how many caches do you plan per sheet or per county in order to accomplish your goal?
So I plan 2 to 3 at a minimum of physical targets in each county and page. Even in Texas, where they allow other icons, I don't consider either one complete until my name is on some kind of physical logbook. As we have progressed through this trip, I've been refreshing my database of targets and just checking to see if there's any archives in critical spots. For the most part, I've been lucky, and even if 2 out of 3 get archived, there's one that looks very solid that has been on the map and still remaining where it is. Direwolf had brought up a good point, though. Some of the counties and some of the DeLorme pages only have one physical option on them. So how have I been lucky enough to find a cache in each DeLorme page? Sometimes I've just been really, really lucky.
Oh man, good for you.
There was at least 1 or 2 DeLorme pages somewhere in the Northeast where I DNF'd one at one corner of the page and the other one was at the other corner of the page.
Oh,
But I've always been able to pull out, even if it's, I call it a one and done, even if it's just one and walk away from the county or page, I've been barely able to pull that off. And I don't like one and dones. I feel that they're very risky. For example, I've had cache owners who just don't like my long log that delete me. And so having 2 in each county and page makes things a lot safer.
Being a CO that has received one of your long logs to a find, it really didn't bother me any. I'm surprised that some COs have had an issue with with your with the log for a find. But being that, UDAC asked a good question. Have you come across any Earth Cache COs along the route that have just been exceptionally hard for the answers? I know you haven't got to Wyoming yet, so when you get to Yellowstone National Park, you'll encounter
Skipping
those.
I know who you're talking about.
because having lived in Wyoming and only an hour and a half or so outside the east gate of Yellowstone, I know that there are some exceptionally well done earth caches in that national park that are by people who have a PhD in geology, who require almost a college thesis to answer some of them. But have you come across any COs that have just been not really receptive to wanting to work with you, that they were, very cut and dry, very, you must have the answer or your log's out the window?
So first of all, I'm not doing Yellowstone because I've already done that. Most of the earth caches there, and I was already warned about a particular CO before I went, and so I knew the little tidbits like it's a bridal veil flowing down the steps. I knew the words and verbs we were already looking for there. But I've actually been fairly fortunate. I have had some of my answers kicked back on earth caches, but usually the COs accept when I kind of give them the second try at it. And I haven't had anybody just completely outright delete me on an earth cache for having wrong answers. And they're not always perfect. I do my best, and I've done a lot of earth caches, but there's always something new I haven't seen in an earth cache and some kind of geological thing I've never answered questions about before, no matter how many you do.
That's correct.
Yeah, Meg, we got a comment from Houston, Texas today. Dave says he loves the dog videos of Ichan on the trail, and Lori's wondering, is it only you and I on the trail?
Kind of. So Ichan and I are, of course, the everyday combo. We don't go anywhere without each other. We've been really fortunate that we have a lot of geocaching friends that we've geocached over the years with, who are very interested in joining us on this trip. So in the videos leading up till now, we have a lot of rotation. Skeletor 10s come in and out twice. Me Moms come in and out twice. My friend Sanferic joined me. And I actually have a friend joining me who's going to be making an appearance in a day or two here as well. So he'll be finishing out the rest of California with me until we get into Las Vegas. And there will be more joining us as we go as well. And one of those layers that I did on my trip planning after I did all the geocache targets and then I timed out everything is I looked at people that I knew along my route in the cities I was going to, and I reached out to them and said, hey, about this time, I'm going to be in your area. And I kind of laid plans with a lot of people I know across the country. So I've also been very fortunate to be able to have a lot of varied days with those friends as well. For instance, we did a day with Ames in Pittsburgh. We did a day with my friend in New York when he threw me out of an airplane. Always good to have friends like that. And we've met other friends like that as we go. We did Power Island with a friend from middle school. and we
Oh,
paddled
cool.
out to the island, just him and I, and the dog didn't want anything to do with that. And so we've had a lot of opportunities to have variety in who we meet along the way too.
Oh, that's very cool. In Houston, Texas, Dave had another good question. How is your Geomobile holding up on this trip?
It's looking pretty rough around the edges there, Houston, Texas, Dave.
I remember watching your video, and I can't remember where it was, where you're just like, okay, I just did 100,000. Like, how many miles are on your car right now, mileage wise?
That was Pennsylvania. I remember pulling off in that national forest and going, "Oh, I'm almost there." I started at about 80,000. I'm about 150,000 now. So I've been averaging about 10,000 miles a month, give or take. When I finish this trip, I'm expecting to be at or just below 200,000. For vehicle maintenance, I give it monthly oil changes. And to be honest, it's probably not enough, but I at least make sure for that. Every 3 months, because I have admin days built throughout my schedule. Every 3 months on one of those admin days, I schedule ahead to a dealership and I bring the car in so they can give it a full look over and change out any of the big stuff that needs to be done. And so it's some days you can hear it getting beat, but it's working out pretty well. I've had a blowout, I've had a flat. I've been able to change both of those out, limp to a good tire place, and get changed out and back on the road fairly quickly.
Well, that's good.
For-
Yeah, and UDEC was concerned about getting a car wash, and if that would help as well too.
I'm very proud of the fact that I have not washed my car since July 1st. It is all natural.
That is a well-seasoned Geomobile right there at its finest on that one.
It has
That's
dirt
right.
from like 20 states streaked across it. I can't give up that custom paint job now.
That's like a baseball player. It's like if you got the glove or the bat, no matter how dirty, if it's riding out, doing you good, you just keep going with it, right?
Yep.
And I know you, Jack, said the Geomobile is the third member of the team on that one. I bet it is.
I'm sure it ends up in a lot of those background shots as well. But Aichan and I, we live out of the car. So we geocache in it all day long. At night, we pull the seats forward, rearrange it a little bit, and turn it into camper mode. And so that car gets used night and day, 24/7.
Man, I tell you what, some of my best memories of county caching and county hunting were car camping trips where you were like, "Yep, I'm gonna be in the back of a truck stop, or I'm gonna be over here. I found this vacant lot of a development that hasn't been developed yet, but they've got a road in, so I'm going to park right here." So, outside of doing that near the U.S.-Mexico border outside of Laredo, I haven't had any issues with any of that. So, I tell you what, I absolutely love car camping, county caching trips, and so you're living the dream, brother. You're living the dream.
Yeah, Direwolf is asking what kind of Geomobile is it? He said, "I bet it's a Jeep like the kind from MASH, isn't it?"
Oh, I wish. If I didn't have doors, I'd be so much faster to get in and out for those geocaches. It's a Mazda CX-9, and we took out the second and third row seating for it. And then with the help of a friend of mine, we installed a base into the car that has 4 separate storage compartments. And that gives it 6 feet flat of space in the back. So one side is all the stuff we have to live in, and one side is our sleeping space. I want to say it's day 50, right about that mark. I actually have an admin day video that I break it out and show you the interior of the car as well. Very happy with the way it's set up. I mean, it was a creation genius that my friend came up with, and we did the whole thing in one day to take everything apart and build it out for the trip.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. And speaking of sleeping in your car, just finding our way, was wondering how many hours of sleep are you getting each night on average?
My days are fairly well regimented. I have 12 hours on, 12 hours off, essentially. So if I start moving at 7 a.m., I'm generally finished by 7 p.m. I have 4 hours of video editing time I need each night, and I have about 2 hours on the front and back of rearranging the car, getting food, feeding the dog. And so that leaves me about 6 hours to sleep per night. If things aren't going well that day, that 6 hours is the first thing to start crunching in until we can get ourselves back on track.
Charles, did you have a question? I couldn't tell if you were frozen or pondering.
No, I was sitting there pondering some of this. You sat there and said, you mentioned video editing, and I know that a lot of people have been following your videos, but for those who haven't, where can they find some of your videos? Where can they find? Do you have some social media? Give us a link to your YouTube and whatnot, so that those of our listeners and followers that are tuning in, if they haven't heard of you and your adventure yet, they have now. And where can they follow some of your adventures for your day-to-day ins and outs?
If you haven't heard of me, I'm glad that you're here in Geocache Talk. I encourage you to get on the channel and subscribe. I am on YouTube. All my videos are focused on there at Magplanner. That's MAGPLANNER. And then I also have a supporting website. It is themagplanner.com. And all of the state route maps that I'm doing, as well as each of the state's target lists, are posted there so people can pull those up as reference. As I finish states, I am referencing those. I'm linking to those maps and those target lists so that people can go and see what I've done in each one. And then when I get to the end of this, I will also post all of the states we've already completed with my maps, as well as the complete target list that somebody can go through.
Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna you and me share a commonality in the brother and sisterhood. You are a U.S. Marine, a former U.S. Marine, and so in that, tell us a little bit about you. You've sat there and said that you've had some that you plan your trips, and anytime that you get near a veterans memorial, you seek those out, or any other patriotic displays, geocaches along those lines. Have you come across any favorites that you have come across so far that you'd like to let other cachers know about?
Oh man, there are so many amazing veterans memorials spread across the country. Pointing to any one of them is almost impossible for me. But there was one that was really special to me. It was one of my Mississippi days. I want to say right about 200, maybe slightly before that. The name of the video is Legends, and I met a veteran who was putting out wreaths at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, William Bramlett. And I had an opportunity to talk to him about his experiences in Vietnam. And he walked me around the wall and pointed out veterans he knew who have passed, told me about veteran stories. He pulled out his book from Vietnam and started flipping through. I could have spent all day there with him and only hit the tip of the iceberg. But he gave me a few minutes of his time for an audio clip of kind of his quick story. And so that is overlaid on the images of this Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall there in Mississippi. And to me, it brings a tear to my eye to hear him telling his story and be able to see that personal meaning to it. But there, especially in the Northeast part of the country, there's a lot of fantastic, well-done veterans memorials out there. And I love bringing them out to the forefront and other people be able to see them. Because one of those things we say is that as long as we remember, they're never going to be forgotten. So my opportunity to show these memorials and veterans who have passed away from these counties helps to keep the memory alive too.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Question we just got to, Meg, is from Jim. And Jim asks, hey, Meg, how long did it take you to plan out your route and target caches prior to leaving?
Good question, Jim. I took well over 1,000 hours to plan this. I'd started in November of 2022. I wrapped up the entire plan around May, and that was solidly at a minimum 8 hours a day of work into all those different layers that I discussed. And having all that planning in on the front half has really made a difference for being able to execute this trip the way we were aiming at in the timeline we wanted at. Because if I didn't have the plan as solidly built, we'd have a lot of risk of falling behind and not making. But now I know, okay, well, things aren't going well, but I still need to make it to page 100. What are we going to do that? If I didn't have a good plan in place, we'd fall behind one counting page at a time until it was weeks or months from where we want to be.
Yeah, that I can't even imagine. That is so cool just to think about all those logistics going into a trip like this on that side. Dire Wolf is also that was actually to Scouter 74. Does he have any mine listed for McLean County on that one?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I really haven't checked the CO's name. It's more where the geocache is and if it's got some favorite points. So if you've got highly favorited caches, the chances are your geocaches are higher on the list too.
All right, and so here is a link to Magplanner's Mississippi Legends video. If you'd like to check that out, we highly encourage you to do so.
Mhm.
Check out this video that is linked here in the at the bottom of the banner, and check out his YouTube channel. Support him in any way possible, and we appreciate the the time that you've taken for some of these videos that highlight veterans memorials and special places for like this along the route.
It's definitely been my pleasure to be able to bring this to the geocaching community.
Yeah. And thank you, Meg. And another question we got too. We got a few on your family that people are kind of curious about on this one. So just to talk about this for a few seconds or a few minutes, is your family enjoying your videos?
I hope.
And then the follow-up question is, how's the family doing?
So I know that my wife watches the videos every day. I'm fairly certain that my son does, although he may watch on fast forward. He's got kind of a brain that processes things quickly, and sitting and watching media is not really for him. My daughter, I'd bet against it, but I'll have her rapt attention soon enough, and she'll get the behind-the-scenes dad talk. As you know, I'm watching video number 25 with her, and I'm like, listen for the cow sound right there. Did you hear it? Those little things. Those are going to be really fun for her. As far as how they're doing, this is their first time ever being able to be close to family. We've always lived very far away from my family and very far away from my wife's family. So now her mom and dad are just 10 minutes down the road, and her sister and our niece and nephew are only about 20 minutes down the road in the other direction. So they're interacting frequently. And that's one thing I've definitely wanted them to have the ability to do. So we're very happy for that. As for the rest of it, when I get to Japan, that's when we're kind of going to see exactly what our next step is going to be.
And are you thinking right after you finish, then you're going to Japan right after that?
Oh yeah, I've already got my ticket bought. It's about 3 days after the last video is going to come out.
So you have it planned to the day already. Wow.
Oh yeah. So those 3 days are to give me that little bit of slack in case something goes wrong.
Oh, can we ask, when is that day that you intend on finishing?
So my very last day will be June 20th. And there's talk right now that the Los Angeles geocaching community will be hosting an event for me as well. It looks very likely. And so that's probably going to be 23 June. And I will do my best to have a video of that as well, although it may not be on a daily format at that point, because I'll be packed up and ready to ship to Japan the next morning.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. That is some planning. And also on here, Streck too, we want to do our best to certainly get to everybody's questions as much as we can. He asked Magplanner, did you make a video for New Hampshire? He didn't see one.
No, I did not. For pretty much most of the eastern seaboard south of New York, I'd already completed all those states before this. So I started in New York, and I kind of hugged the Great Lakes and the border of Canada and went around the entire eastern seaboard.
Wow. And of course, a good question from Owen from KC. going back to when you get to Japan, how long to get to every prefect in Japan?
I'm already more than halfway done with Japan. I've done everything on the east side of the country, east of Osaka, with the exception of one prefecture that has Mount Fuji, and that's because I'm going to take my kids there and climb it. There's no need to do that now. But there's a good chance I'll probably finish every prefecture in Japan by the end of the year. The friend that's going to be joining me here, he's been doing a lot of the work in Japan. He knows I'm moving there. And he's like, so if I come to Japan, then we can just hop on the train. And so it's looking like that video series will be sooner rather than later.
I'll tell you that having recently completed 3 prefectures in Japan and riding the bullet train past Mount Fuji, that Mount Fuji is definitely on my list of places to hike and visit and hopefully summit. Me and my wife are looking at getting back to Japan. That is looking at your map of completed prefectures in Japan is impressive to say the least. Riding the train around Japan and knowing what it takes to get from area to area. That is my next visit to Japan. Trust me, I'm going to be calling you and letting you know, hey,
do so.
I'm going to be in the area. Let's do some stuff. So I had an amazing time in Japan for 10 days with my son here recently. And I'm so looking forward to going back and visiting an amazing country and experiencing it. And so having somebody who is based out of there would just be icing on the cake. So expect some correspondence from me when we go to plan our next trip to Japan.
Oh man, and we do have a question from Quincy Cryptid on here saying, and this is a great question, did you have a definite budget or is it winging it? Any income coming in while geocaching?
I did have a budget. Budgeting has always been a part of my geocaching trips. Whenever we would send to the trips I talked about for the 13 years leading up to this, whenever I'd send it out, it would come with a budget. Airfare is about this much, total trip cost divided by X amount of people is this much. So I used the same running theory for this trip. And I'm actually pretty much right on budget. It's worked out pretty well. I have $60 a day slated for gas. And I've come under that in a lot of states, not California. Not California. But in a lot of other states, I've come under that. At the same time, I had $20 a day budgeted for food. I've broken that for the most part. But those two things have washed out into kind of a zero-sum game. So a third of my budget in total is gas. And that's the next most significant portion of it is automobile maintenance. And same thing, what I've been anticipating for the large, because oil changes are easy to predict, but for the large maintenance, I expect a couple $1,000s per visit to get things back in shape. And that's been about what it's running to. I will be putting out full budget numbers after the fact when I start doing my planning series. But nice. I'm in such constant motion now that sitting down and crunching numbers for me is always a bridge too far.
Yeah.
I bet. And I think our last question, and we appreciate everybody's questions in the chat room tonight, and hopefully we did get to as many as we could. The last question is from Dire Wolf on this one saying, are the Walmart parking lots kind to you for your car camping, or are you a KOA member?
I'm not a KOA member. And for the most part, they're not really convenient to a lot of what I'm doing. Walmart's for the most, going back to Sam Walton, he kind of had this theory that a customer sleeping in your parking lot is a customer in the morning who's going to come in and buy something to eat or something like that. And I definitely fit that bill. So his idea for Walmart's was always to kind of keep them available so that people in RVs or in their car could have a place to sleep, and they'll come in and spend money in the morning. For the most part, Walmart's are very accommodating to campers pulling up in the back of the parking lot, finding a spot and passing out. The only kind of real exceptions I've had to that are in some of the really big cities. I had one issue in the Twin Cities. I had another issue. I outside of Dallas. But again, only with the really, really big cities. Outside of that, the smaller the town, the more likely you can crash in the parking lot, and they're just fine with it. And it's been helpful for me because since I don't have a lot of interstate time, rest areas are almost impossible. I very rarely ever see one of those. So it's a lot of Walmart parking lots or 24 hours like Planet Fitness locations. In some of the lonelier states, it turns into like the truck stops and the cooperative agriculture folks. So you got to figure it out as you get there and see what's available.
Oh, well, thank you on that one. Charles, do you have any final questions before we get into our final thoughts?
Hey, so if you had to pick one or the other between completing DeLorme challenges on one side or completing state county challenges, you could only pick one or the other. Which one would you more likely lean towards and why?
So I'm partial to DeLorme challenges as I'm the owner of the Florida DeLorme Challenge. But with that said, counties all the way. It's the thing that gets evaluated the most. If, for example, if I'm talking to somebody, oh, I went through every DeLorme page in the U.S. What does that mean? Oh, I went through every county in the U.S. Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying to me right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, for final thoughts on this one, Meg, we want to open up with yourself. So, any final thoughts? I think there's been a lot of great questions on the show. I know we probably could have gone for like another hour, just all the details, all the planning, all the incredible experiences on this side. But any final thoughts you'd like to share with everybody?
Well, number one, I definitely appreciate you guys having me on. It's great to be able to talk to folks about this journey that we're taking and give them an opportunity to tune in to the product that we're making. I haven't monetized my channel. I've been trying to keep it ad free. I don't know that I'm necessarily ever going to. I like the fact that people can get on there and just enjoy the videos for what they are, get a virtual tour of the US with us. And of course, if you tune into the shorts, they're pretty much just all Ichan being Ichan, which is adorable as can be. And so we're hoping as we wrap this up that more geocachers can tune in and kind of see geocaching from our perspective, not necessarily about the geocaches themselves, although you'll see plenty of those, but more so about the places that geocaching can bring you. And hopefully, after you've watched a few videos, you'll have a map that you've put some pins on and you have some locations you want to go out to and check out in detail later. Because no matter where I've taken you on this virtual tour of the US, there's always more to see than I'm able to show you. And if you like what you see in any one of these locations, I guarantee you, if you go there in real life, there's going to be more than what you saw in the video.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Charles, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Hey, man, we just appreciate you taking the time out of we know that, you've got some admin days built into this. We appreciate you taking the time to, budget in, an hour, give or take, plus or minus to be with us. We appreciate you taking the time to include your adorable little puppy in the background in all of this. You are on a lofty goal to complete something that I don't think very many cachers in the geocaching community can say that they've completed. So my hat's off to you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us to, answer some of our questions, talk to some of our viewers, talk to the Pizza Ninja and I, and we just wish you well in the rest of your adventure. If there's anything that we can do to help you, feel free to absolutely 100% reach out. We've got some contacts in states that you haven't been to yet or that are on your route to finish. And so if there's anything we can do to help you, just let us know. We'll reach out to our contacts and make this a fruitful experience for you as you come into the home stretch of it. So we just want to say thank you. We appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate the content that you're bringing to the screen that highlights geocaching in an amazing, positive manner. And we wish you the best in the rest of your adventure.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. And for the record, this is Aichun's default position in a hotel room. We sleep in the car pretty much all the time. So when we get to a hotel room and there's a mattress, that's it. That's all you're getting out of her.
Oh man, if you had to pick a partner on a journey, looks like she's the best partner one person could have on that side. On this
She
journey.
disapproves. There's a lot of things I do, but she does it silently.
What more could you ask for in a teammate, right?
Right.
Well, Mag, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Thank you for all the wonderful questions from everybody in the chat room. We really appreciate those. Hopefully we got a chance to get to as many as we could tonight. And yeah, we're cheering you on in the rest of your journey. Can't wait to see the videos on that. And again, Charles shared the YouTube link earlier on this one. Please subscribe to Mag's channel. Please thumbs up his videos. Please provide him that encouragement, because this is an amazing and incredible journey that he's on. So on that note, thank you everybody for tonight. We appreciate it. And we'll catch you next week on Sunday. Okay. Take care, everybody.
See you out on the trails.
May your finds be many and your DNFs be few. May the terrain and difficulty both be less than 2. And whatever it is you're looking for, may it find its way to you. And may we all meet again.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. Please email us your comment at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, as well as at the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below and ring that bell notification so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us in the chat room. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching, go geocaching.